All right, what's going on, everybody? I'm going to be giving you guys today the pretty much the full breakdown on what I think is the new age of selling packages. I think there was, a point where it was cash based PT was brand new, and you kind of people are just selling single visit sessions. I did that in a whole other video on why you shouldn't be selling single visit sessions. But then I think packages became all of the rage, and people were selling like a 5, a 10, and a 12 pack of sessions, which worked super well, gave you a little bit more cash flow. But I think there's this new iteration now that I think we really perfected at Ripple, and they continue to do a really good job with it. And that is, the version 2.0 of selling packages. And what I'm going to give you today a full breakdown on how you should be looking at these packages, how you can sell people into continuity and ongoing services, how to really increase the conversion percentage for your packages, how to set up your evaluation to get people in to have the opportunity to sell them a package. This is really going to be like the full-fledged, kind of everything you need to know here for selling packages. So, first off, like, why should you listen to me about all of this stuff? I think, the first thing, if you don't know who I am, I owned Ripple Physical Therapy in downtown Boston. Ended up growing that clinic to 7 physical therapists, 2 different locations, 7 figures, and I sold it in the end of 2024. A little under, it was about 3 years worth of owning the clinic to grow it and scale it and sell it. And one of the biggest reasons why we were able to do that was because we converted at an extremely high rate for everybody in the top of our funnel. I would also have a background as a personal trainer, which I think we can learn a lot from the fitness industry, where they have to be the ones that like sell their services and get people to commit to long term and staying on top of people and making sure they continue to come in. I also, while I was at Ripple, I promoted a clinic director. And I know this says 6 PTs. I had one more, 7 PTs, after I put this presentation together here. And yeah, the clinic director, converts at an extremely high rate as well. And, I obviously run Patch now, which helps 200 plus cash based physical therapy, chiropractic clinics get more new patients in through advertising and converts those leads into new patients at an extremely high rate through this setup here that we're going to talk about. And you can see here some of the metrics that we have. Converted 80% of people that got on a phone call with me and they scheduled an evaluation. 84% of those people actually showed up for the eval. And then my staff members converted packages at 73%. So, really high percentages there, much above what industry norm is. I'm kind of talking about the old way that packages used to be sold in 2021 when we first rolled out our packages. This is how we did everything. Again, we had initial evaluation, $215. We had an initial 5-pack of sessions. So we had a 10-pack, and then we had a 20-pack. Pretty standard package offerings, back in that day. And you can see here, and this is stuff that I'm going to talk about as we go through this. But we're starting with a high price evaluation, which we know now is not the way to do it. You're going to get much less people in the door at that higher price evaluation. It's going to be much harder to convert people into packages at that high price evaluation. So it's not something we want to do. The second part of this is we obviously have packages that have low sessions here. So, if you put this in front of somebody and they see a 5, a 10, and a 20 pack, everyone's going to go for the 5-pack because it's less commitment. They don't really know what they're getting themselves into. They don't know anything about physical therapy, to be totally honest with you. And they're going to do, as little amount of sessions as possible. We sold mostly those 5-packs, and it became really, really hard to get people to stick around and continue working with us because they only came in for 5 sessions. We weren't able to show all the value that we had. And then like our continuity offering, we didn't really have any sort of ongoing offer. It's like, all right, you finish your 5-pack. Why don't you just come in, one time a month moving forward? And some people would take us up on that, but it became really, really hard to increase the lifetime value of our patients with these package models. And we you can see it even like with the naming here. We said like 20 sessions is going to change your life. Somebody with chronic pain, 20 sessions is not going to change their life. Even somebody with just like calf pain, when they're running 10 to 15 miles a week. 20 sessions is going to get them feeling better 100%. But if they come in and they, do 20 sessions over the period of, 8 to 12 months, then they're probably going to get re-injured, and that is not going to change their life. So, I think this is the marketing that we used to do, but we now know that, physical therapy and this rehab care, we can change people's lives, but it takes years to do that. We need people to buy into that actual vision. So, I think a really good way to look at this, right, is like traditional versus diagnostic selling. So, the traditional way of doing things is if you buy a 5 pack now, if you want more later, you can come in and buy another. You're buying based off of spend, not by what you actually need. So, you're not really selling plans of care, right? And, the traditional model is like, hey, this is just what we offer, basically. So, you come in, take it, and, kind of leave it. Versus what I'm going to talk about today is this principle called diagnostic selling. So what we do is we pre-screen everybody that comes in with the discovery call. We figure out where are they at now, where do they want to be in 3 months, and then the packages that we offer them are going to show them like, hey, here's how we get you there. It's not 5 sessions, not 10 sessions, not 20 sessions. It's more so talking about the plan of care and how we're going to get them to what their aspirational identity actually is. So here's why you can't just do that this way, right? Basically, to begin with, you have lower amount of leads from the higher priced evaluation. So that $215, $250, $300 evaluation some people are charging now, it becomes really hard to scale your clinic outside of anybody that's coming from word of mouth referrals that already trust you. If you just take a random person off the street or a Google Ads lead or somebody you met even at a workshop and you say, hey, yeah, you got to come in. The first session is $300. It's going to be really hard to get a lot of people to come in for that. Also talking about the packages, right? Like $2,000 upfront when you've only spent, one 60-minute session with someone, that is a lot of money upfront. And it's really hard to, think about yourself, right? Like if you're a clinical owner, you're probably making good money. $2,000 upfront for legal fees, right? If you're going to do this with a lawyer, it's just a lot of cash up front, even for people that can afford it. You can't promote people, for not sticking around. So saying like, hey, in 12 weeks, I'm going to change your life. You're never going to need me again. It's just not good business. It's sure maybe it's good on like the clinician side, but we're looking at this as running a business, and we're trying to get people to spend as much money with us as possible so we can provide as much value as possible. And we can't just do that if people are only coming in, they're buying 5 or 6 sessions. There's just it's just not enough time to provide our value. And as rehab professionals and doctors of physical therapy, you can do much more than just fix people's cranky calf muscle. You can, teach them how to run properly, how to strength train, how to, you have like manual therapy skills that are valuable for people to come in more than 6 sessions. And we really need to, kind of lean into that. And then the last way, like the last thing you can't do, right, is like not having a legit way for people to buy more sessions with you. I think that this is something that I'll go over in this presentation here, but not having a legit continuity plan and a plan for people that to actually move forward and continue working with you is just it's a business killer. You will not scale past. Maybe you'll have one other employee, but definitely not past that. You need to have a legit way for people to continue moving forward and working with you and increase that lifetime value at all times. So here's what you should do instead, right? This is what I'm going to talk about. First thing is the low price evaluation. Getting everybody in you got to figure out what your number is, right? At Ripple, our number was $50. So everybody came in and they got a $50 evaluation. That's one of the main reasons why I was able to convert most people on the phone. But you can see, like in the metrics that I showed you on slide 1, we still converted 75% of these people into packages. So whenever I say like, hey, you've got to have a low barrier offer entry for your evaluation, the feedback that I always get from clinic owners is like, well, then how do you sell them into a package afterwards? It's got to be impossible. Well, if you're providing enough value and you're showing all of the awesome things that you're doing and you're value stacking what you get with your package, then the package should be it should be so good that people would feel stupid saying no, and that's really what we're shooting for, and it is achievable 100%. But really, what we're trying to do, if you're trying to grow and scale your clinic, Low price evaluation is just going to get more people in the door. And then the more people in the door, the more packages we can sell, the more staff members we can have, the busier their schedules are. And ultimately how, that's how we make more money. Setting up your packages, I think the best way to do this is the 10, the 15, and the 24 packages. You can really like frame these around plans of care. So like a 10 pack of sessions, for example, somebody comes in and just the way we sold our packages was in 3-month increments. So whether you're buying a 10, a 15, or a 24, you are buying 3 months worth of PT. And then, based on what you found during that evaluation, you just framed how that 10, the 15, and the 24 fits into 12 weeks worth of PT. And then once they get done those 12 weeks worth of PT, the 10, the 15, or the 24 packs, then you push them and you move them into once a week, twice a month, or once a month continuity packages. And we weren't having people pay for all 15 sessions up front. So say somebody bought a 15 pack of sessions, what they would get, they would pay for 5 sessions on day one. The next month, they would pay for 5 more. And then that last month, they would pay for the final 5 sessions. So it's not as big of a cash flow hit, still $1,000 a month. And this becomes really predictable for your business. If you know that each month you're going to generate $40,000 to $50,000 worth of this package revenue, put your business in a really good spot. And that's what we had at Ripple. And it made it really easy for us to spend a ton of money on advertising, which helped us grow. It allowed for us to hire new staff PTs and not have to worry about their overhead. It just makes running a business much easier. So let's talk about this low price evaluation. Again, I think this is one of the biggest unlocks. And remember, right, of like, you don't need to do this if you don't plan on growing or scaling, or if you just want like word of mouth leads in the door here. So if you're just, again, you're complacent with, just having yourself and maybe one other PT, you can charge the full price evaluation because you're not going to need as many evals in the door. So this is really a volume play here. And how we make our advertising work to get people in the door. So you got to figure out what your low barrier offer is going to be. And again, this, just because we had $50 at Ripple doesn't mean that it has to be what you use as well. I know people that are super successful with $79, $129, $99, $19. This is where you've got to trial and error it and see like what are your goals with this and what is working best for your clinic. You always have to position this evaluation as like a one-off session. So this is where this discovery call makes all of the difference in the world. Talking with somebody beforehand, just saying like, hey, listen, like first session's $50. Then you come in and we offer packages. Here's what our packages look like. But we always just want somebody to come in, experience what we got going on, especially if you've been to PT in the past. We just it's just much different coming in and seeing us. So you need to figure out, how to position it, how much you're going to charge. And, again, like this is so important because we just want as many people in the door as possible because we have no opportunity to sell them a package if they don't even come in for that evaluation. So, okay, you're probably thinking right now, we shouldn't discount our prices. Sure, like I totally understand where you're coming from, but this is like an LTV play, right? So lifetime value. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to extend the amount of money that people pay for our services. So if you take the total revenue generated divided by the number of patients you have, that will give you your LTV. So how much people are spending with you. So this $200 discount, right, is worth the exposure to get more people in the door and for have the opportunity to sell more packages at the end of the day. Because think about like how many more people can you get in the door on a $50 valuation versus a $250 valuation? A ton more, right? And then how many more of those people will buy a package? How many more people will buy a second package? How many of those people will refer a friend? So you just have more shots on net with this. And at the end of the day, you're going to have more people in the door. So you're going to have higher revenue. And then those people are going to spend more money with you and send their friends your way because, the awesome part about cash-based rehab services is our product is so much better than what the traditional insurance companies have out there that we're going to win out every single time. We just got to get people in and experience what we're doing. So, like, just looking at the math with this, right? So if you look at that left column, the $50, 50 new leads per month. If you're charging $250 eval, and then you convert those at 50%, right? Because that's probably what it's going to be. It's going to be much lower. That's going to give you 25 evaluations at $250 a pop. And then you convert those 25 evals at a 75% conversion rate. That means you're going to generate $42,000 worth of total revenue, 6,250 in evals, 36,000 in packages. Not bad, right? Like pretty good. But let's say like in this right column here, we get 50 leads per month and we're charging a $50 evaluation. So we're going to get 80% of those people to come in for an evaluation. So that's going to give us 40 evals versus the 25 that we get at our full price. Big difference there, right? And let's say, for sure, like we're going to convert less of these people into a package. So maybe it's not the 75% that we were doing at Ripple, but let's say it's 65%. So 26 new patients purchase the 10 pack at $2,000. That's going to be 65% conversion. That means we're generating $54,000 in total revenue, $2,000 in evaluations. So $4,000 less in evals, which is a lot, obviously, but we're generating $52,000 in packages versus the 36. It's a difference of almost $12,000 in 8 new patients. And that's not even taking into account, right? Like of those 8 new patients, say 3 or 4 of them continue and work with you on a monthly basis after their initial package. That means their lifetime value goes up and up and up and up. And just the opportunity for scale there is just so much higher. So hopefully this makes a little bit of sense. So one of the things with this low barrier offer entry, right, is like we don't want to get ghosted. So you got to, be because you're going to be generating a lot more leads, and the idea with this is you're probably running ads if you're doing a low barrier offer entry. So you want to run everyone through a discovery call. If you do a good job of showing value on that call, people are going to show up to these evaluations. I think a lot of people can take, a $39 eval not seriously because it's not a ton of money. But if you talk to that person on the phone beforehand, you like hear them out, hear what they have to say, give them an over the top experience, people are going to show up for these evaluations. Also, this is where CRM comes into play, right? So it's like, how are you nurturing that person before they come in? What type of automated emails do you have? How are you personalizing your follow up? These are all things that should be done in order to get somebody just to show up before their evaluation. So there's lots of work to do, but it's necessary to do. All right. So let's talk about, I touched on this briefly already, but selling at the evaluation. This is probably the most important thing that you and your clinic and your staff PTs can nail down here, right? So somebody comes in for the evaluation, they have an awesome eval, you do your thing. Like again, the PT side of things, you guys are all really, really good at. We don't have to talk anymore about that. But once somebody comes in for the eval, how are we selling this package to them? And what do we do in order to get them to take that next step forward? So when somebody comes in for an evaluation, you hand them this package sheet. You say, all right, we've got a 10 to 15 to 24 pack of sessions. Again, the main thing that you need to think about and you need to train your staff members on is this is a 3-month package, and that is it. The 10 sessions should not last a year. The 15 sessions should not last a year. You're not buying 24 sessions because it's the cheapest option and you just want to spread them out for as long as possible. No, we're giving our legit recommendation based on what we just found during that evaluation, saying something like, all right, like, awesome eval, hope the back's feeling a little bit better. Here's our package options for moving forward. I think you should do the 15 pack of sessions based on what I found during this evaluation. People that are like you, that have a similar diagnosis, case, symptoms, whatever you want to say, they usually do the 15 pack. And what they do is they come in twice a week for the first 3 to 4 weeks, and they come in once a week. And that gets us about to the 12-week mark. Once you're at the 12-week mark, we can figure out, what do you need moving forward? Do you want to continue coming in once a week, once a month? We have tons of different options for that. But I think, based on where you're at today and what you told me your goals were at the beginning of the evaluation, I think 15 sessions is going to get us where we want to go. Does that sound good? Very hard to say no to that. Very, very hard. And people like they're feeling good, they're motivated, they're ready to go. And then you kind of just let them talk and go from there. But I think again, like you're being a legit clinician because you're giving this like plan of care option here of like this is why you should do 15 or 10 or 24. And it's not really even selling at that point. So really selling a package should be easy. From there should be an email drip from the initial reach out until they purchase a package. Really what this email drip should do is it should answer any questions that they may have about out of network care and what is the difference and what do I get with in network versus out of network and why do I have to pay out of pocket and what are all the benefits and what's the value stacking that I get. So anything that might come up during the evaluation, we want to answer with an automated email drip that goes out before they even come in. So that's where, again, a CRM comes into play. You should also be running all these people through a discovery call as well. Sure, it's an extra step for everybody involved, but I think it's super important to address some of these concerns, especially if you're the clinic owner taking this call. You're establishing authority in that like difference maker right off the bat. Within that call and in the email drip, you're also talking about like, yes, sure, like this first session is $50, but we have package options as well. This is the price points they range in. This is kind of what you would be looking at, and they also get an email about it too. So when we hand them that package sheet at the evaluation, they see this for the third time, they're not surprised because they've already talked to you about it. They've already seen it in an email, and they knew what they were getting themselves into. And then the beautiful thing, kind of what I talked about is we map these out in like 3-month increments. So if somebody buys a 15 pack of sessions, they're paying us $1,000 a month. And the reason that we want people to come in 3 months increments and finish all 15 of these sessions in 3 months is because we don't want to go a couple months where they don't get a charge from us. We want to become their part of their overhead. And especially like when I'm going to talk about continuity in a second here, when somebody, they're paying $1,000 a month and they can come in at a similar frequency and pay almost half that. That is a really easy downsell and a really easy way to, get people to move into a second package at 40 or 50%. So let's talk about it, right? Selling this continuity. So what continuity is just a second package after somebody comes in for their first package. Ideally, this is on a recurring basis. So it's just something that gets charged every month. People kind of figure out how many times per month they want to come in, and we can start, seeing this revenue on a consistent basis moving forward. So, the biggest thing when you have staff PT members is to make sure your employees, they get people in with enough frequency. So that's where, again, I just see it all the time where, somebody will buy 10 sessions and it takes them a year to finish those 10 sessions. There's no possible way that you're going to ever be able to sell continuity if it takes you that long to sell or to finish a 10 pack of sessions. People are just going to run out. It's just not a way to do it. So you need to make sure that 10, the 15, the 24, whatever you're selling in package one, though, that is done in 3 months. That's why that's where this becomes really successful. The nice thing about the continuity prices you can see here, right, is like, it's cheaper than what we're normally selling. So we can almost like lean into like, hey, it's this like loyalty discount, or because you've been working with us, we want to help you out. And the most successful funnel that we saw at Ripple was somebody would come in for a 15 pack. Again, they would come in twice a week for the first couple of weeks, and then once a week, kind of moving forward from there. That would get us through our 3-month mark. And they were paying $1,000 before. And then what we would say is like, hey, listen, like you're crushing, you're doing awesome. I think you have one or two options. You can either continue coming in at once a week, or you can, drop down a little bit and come in twice a month. I think both of those options are really awesome. If you come in once a week, you were paying $1,000 before. It's only $715. If you come in twice a month, you were paying $1,000 before. You're only paying us $375 a month now. That $375 is a no-brainer. That's like the lowest like downsell. Very, very easy. But to be honest, most people continued at that once a week cadence, which was awesome, just because they're saving $200 a month there, and they're coming in the same frequency. The biggest thing with this, right, is like you need to teach your physical therapist and your staff and even you yourself, like, how do you give your expert opinion? You shouldn't lie about these things and say, like, just because you're coming in once a week, you should continue to come in once a week. There should be like some legit reason on why they should be coming in once a week. And, is it because you're working on more strength training things with them, or they're training for a marathon or something along those lines? Or like, hey, listen, you're doing really good on your own. Twice a month is going to be more than enough for you. Let's do that. It's only $375. So you should be legit when this isn't really sales, right? Like, we're just giving our expert opinion, and we have everything structured so to make it like not salesy at all here, which is really, really helpful. So if you want to sell more continuity, here's the trick, right? Like, you need to pre-frame it. You can't just say, like, on their 15th session, be like, oh yeah, like, this is your last session. Do you want to keep paying us and continue coming in? You can't just surprise people like that. So you need to have a process for this, just like you do. You have a pre-evaluation flow for somebody coming in for an eval. You need to have a pre-continuity flow on how you're selling continuity. So when somebody gets to this like 10 to 12 week mark, what you should be doing is you just send a progress note. Okay. So it's like, I think this could be the missing link for you of like going from 20% continuity conversion to 50% continuity conversion. And just doing that right there is going to get your staff PT schedules full without generating any more new evaluations. So again, this is why this is so important. What you do is you just use a CRM to remind and like track and that this follow up here. Especially, we've been doing it with our PT Everywhere and HubSpot integration, where if somebody has 3 sessions remaining, this is when we'll send this progress note, or 2 sessions remaining, or however you want to do it. Basically, what it is just say like, hey, Jim, like, you've been, do you remember 3 months ago you were in here, you couldn't even, raise your arm above your head because your shoulder hurt so bad. This past week you were in the gym rowing 50 pounds. Like, awesome to remember that progress. I'm super excited, and this is the most important part. I'm super excited for what the next 3 months look like, because we're going to be training for that marathon that you keep talking about, or the 36 holes of golf that you want to play this summer, or whatever it might be. And what that does is that says to the patient, like, oh, like, Jeremy's already thinking about me 3 months from now. Awesome. He's already got a plan in place. He's working on the workouts. It's almost like a little bit of reciprocity there. Like, hey, I'm doing this thing for you, so you need to in turn do this thing for me and stick around and continue coming in. And it's a really big value add. Nowhere else is doing anything like that, right? So if you can do that, you're going to sell more continuity than you know what to do with. This is the number one way to scale. If you can teach your employees how to sell continuity, if you can get people in on a regular basis, and if you can increase the lifetime value, or the number of or the amount of money people are spending with you over time, and you can get that number up above $3,000 or $4,000, even $2,000, to be totally honest with you, you can spend way more money on cost to acquire leads. You can hire good PTs and pay them proper amounts of money. This is just, if you want to run a business, you want to have a 7-figure clinic, this is how you have to do it. And just like looking at this, right, of like, all right, if you have 50 continuity patients, and all the way in this left column here, right? So if all of them come in once a month for 3 months, say that's $200, that's going to be 10K of MRR. More importantly though, right, it's going to be 50 sessions a month, and $120,000 of MRR over the 12-month period. But if you have 50 continuity patients and they're coming in twice a month for 3 months, which is kind of the normal at Ripple, that's $19,000 of MRR. So already that's $9,000 more in recurring revenue every single month. Think about that. That's more than what a staff PT makes, and we're not generating any new patients here. That's going to be 100 sessions a month, so double the amount of sessions that you were having on just the once a month model, and $228,000 over 12 months. And if you're really good and you're selling a couple of people into, some once a week, and there's a good mix with all of these things. So say you have 10 people of this 50 in the once a week, 25 and twice a week, 15 in the once a month, you're going to be at, call it $20,000 of MRR, 105 sessions a month, 235 grand over 12 months. So huge, double the amount of revenue, double the amount of sessions. Just makes everything easier for everyone. And this is how you keep staff members around. So let's talk about MRR, right? Like this is really important. I've been talking a lot about this, and this is why like I like to run like the payment plans for the packages, is because we know we can calculate out like how much money is our are we going to invoice each month. And if you know what this number is, it's honestly pretty easy to run your business. And I always like to look at this of like, hey, if we're trying to create a quarterly goal here, so if we're trying to generate 150 grand in Q4, we know that we need 50 grand a month in revenue. If we have $10,000 in MRR, that means we need $40,000 of new customers in the door. And if on average people spend $2,000 with us, that means we need 20 new patients and 50 leads gives us 20 patients. That means in quarter four, we just need to generate 50 leads. And, again, it just makes life much, much easier for you. So, all right, here's all the nitty gritty annoying stuff. Revive is what we call our first package. This is a 3 monthly payments. We would charge it on day one. And then the next upcoming charges were on the first of each month. So we had on the first of each month, we had a bunch of money hitting, which was pretty awesome. And then, if the first charge is on a date later than the 21st, then we would skip a month. So say it's March 22nd and they came in for their evaluation, bought a package. I wouldn't then go and charge them on April 1st as well. May 1st would be their next payment package. And then our Revive, our continuity package. This is a minimum, another commitment of 3 months. Same thing as a charge on the first of each month. Charged until canceled is basically how we did this, and this is what they signed. Or it's if they have 4 sessions banked, if you were on vacation, they were sick, you were sick, whatever it might be. Again, we would just skip a month and get those people in the door, get them use their sessions, and then get right back on the payment side of things. So, all right, here are your 10 takeaways that you should be doing to sell packages. First thing, everyone should start with a discovery call so you can talk to that person, show them you're human, show them that this is a much different experience than what they get in the insurance side of things, and start stacking that value immediately. And get people to already start being like, man, I think this is going to be expensive, but it's probably going to be worth it. That is step one with all of this. You need to position the evaluation as a one-off, low barrier offer entry to get as many evals in the door as possible. Not only is this good to sell more packages because you're obviously seeing more people, but if you have staff PTs and you're able to get more evaluations in the door, they're going to build their confidence faster. They're going to get more reps on the eval side of things. There's just no world where you should be charging $300 to somebody who has no idea who you are and they have no trust with you. It's just never going to work. You need to utilize value stacking and automated education to make the package sale easy. So again, how are you listing everything out? And make sure you check out the value stacking video that I put together. But you can say dry needling is included. That's $100 value. Online coaching program, that's a $300 value. We had partnerships with local partners in the area where they got a free cryotherapy or DEXA scan or 3 Orange Theory classes. That's a $1,200 value. So yeah, you're paying $2,000 for this package, but you get $1,200 worth of stuff plus the PT, right? That makes that package sale very, very easy. This, I think, is probably the most important thing, right? Package one needs to be sold as a 3-month commitment, and you need to get to people in 3 months. 10 pack of sessions should not last 12, 14, 12 months, 14 months, anything along those lines. I see that far too often. You just have a nurture email drip that talks about continuity. So again, when somebody becomes a new patient, we can't just spring continuity on them and say hey, your 10 sessions is done, because they probably already thought, I know my 10 sessions are done. And we haven't talked about what things look like moving forward. In their brain, they're already done. They're already out. They're already trying to figure out how they're going to do this on their own or where they're going to go next. So you need to make sure your email drip is doing that. And then your staff PTs are talking to patients about it as well. You need to track and make sure your PTs reach out at that 12-week mark. So that progress report that we talked about. Again, this is where CRM comes into play. You can start to project manage those things. You can teach your staff to give expert opinions on frequency for continuity. And even in the package one, you should be giving your expert opinion on what they should do. And then you're just selling plans of care. You're not selling packages. You're not selling thousands of dollars worth of stuff. You're selling solutions, which is the easiest way to sell things. You can't let people stretch out their sessions. Again, kind of doubling down on this. You want to utilize payment plans to build that recurring revenue. Someone buys 2 packages and stays consistent for 6 months, then they are never going anywhere else. Again, like our stick rate for people that, purchase that first continuity package, unless they traveled, moved, lost their job, anything along those lines, they were going to continue buying packages with us forever. Because what we want to do at the end of the day is we want to become overhead in people's monthly expenses. If we can do that, then people are never going to go anywhere, and it's never going to feel like a cost to them. It's going to feel like value add for their life. So if you need more help, check me out, patchsystem.com. You can book a demo call there. We also have tons of other free trainings. You can head over to our freebies page on the patchsystem.com. And if you guys have any Q&As or anything like that, feel free to email me, and I'll talk to you soon.